What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another brand new Rugby Muscle podcast. I'm your host, as always, TJ. And this episode, which is number 117, we are joined by Dr. Mike Israetel of Renaissance Periodization. The guy is a genius. But before we get into the episode itself, I've got a few sort of housekeeping notes. We've got to keep the house of Rugby Muscle nice and kept. So with that being said, number one announcement is that Team Rugby Muscle is now live. Yes, you heard that right. I've been banging on about Team Rugby Muscle for a long time now. It's been through its testing, and we are now ready to be delivered directly to your phone. It's an online strength and conditioning program that is made for you average gym goers. I say you average, you're more than average. If you listen to this, you're way better than average. But people they're not necessarily professionals, not necessarily got access to an amazing strength and conditioning gym. It can help if you do, but it's just your general people that work normal jobs. It's for you guys that train 3 to 5 sessions a week and want proper strength and conditioning. You want to do real stuff in the gym that's going to help your rugby game. Team Rugby Muscle can do that, and they can do that by delivering world-class strength and conditioning directly to your phone. It also adapts to your specific goals and your needs, and you can find out more at rugby-muscle.com/team. It's not a completely tailored approach. If you want a coach that looks after you and knows exactly what you need and will guarantee your progression as a rugby player and as an athlete, you want to get into one-on-one coaching, you can find that at rugby-muscle.com/coaching. Because of all this new business with Team Rugby Muscle and me being busier with the online coaching, we are moving this podcast to only once a week. You can probably tell that this episode already, you're looking up and you're looking at how long this episode is. You're like, holy shit, if we're doing these twice a week, there's no way I'm going to get all this listening in. And it's not about you getting all this listening, it's about me getting all of this uploading in. Does that make sense? We spoke on this podcast, and actually on this very podcast, about the importance of staying consistent. And I've already missed a few weeks this year. And with more and more and more going on with Rugby Muscle and the Rugby Muscle brand and my personal rugby coaching, which you can see my journey along at tj.strength, it just made sense for me to upload these longer episodes once a week, as opposed to chopping them up and getting them to you in 2 shorter episodes. So yeah, expect these once a week. They're still the same quality. You can still split them up yourself. You can listen to a third of the way or halfway through and then stop and go on about your day and resume. And the way these long conversations are structured, it's pretty easy to do that. So yeah, once a week from now on. I did announce it yesterday on my newsletter, which you can sign up for and pick up 50 free rugby conditioning sessions by just visiting rugby-muscle.com and putting your email in there. It's not one of those shitty newsletters where I just sell or try and be quirky or anything like that. I just give you guys 3 to 5 emails a week just with real good rugby advice, real stuff that you can apply to your training. I don't even sell at all because I feel kind of gross when I sell, and it makes me feel kind of awkward. So I just update you guys on everything going on Rugby Muscle, and I share some tips. I share some stuff that I don't share on my Instagram or on here, so you can be part of that by just going to rugby-muscle.com. Okay, let's get into the podcast. This is episode 117 with Dr. Mike Israetel. He is co-founder and chief sports scientist over at Renaissance Periodization. He's coached numerous athletes, held seminars at the US Olympic-Training Center. He was a nutritional advisor there. He's also coached numerous professional athletes in both diet and weight training, and himself is absolutely jacked, which you can see him at RP Dr. Mike on Instagram. He's also a professional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappler, and I think he's a professional bodybuilder, but this guy is serious. So we get into a lot here. I got him on to talk about advanced hypertrophy principles, but rather than getting into all of that sort of stuff, we actually ended up talking a lot more about the philosophy of being realistic with your training, talking bigger picture muscle gaining, and the importance of science and the importance of understanding exactly the mentality that you need to take you into your training and how you can really become a better athlete by looking at the bigger picture. I'm sure I'm going to get him back on to talk the advanced sort of stuff, but for now I thought this was a really, really great episode, one of the best ones I've ever recorded, and I really enjoyed having a chat with Dr. Mike. So let's get into the episode 117 with Dr. Mike Israetel. If people haven't listened to you before, they need to get to know they need to understand. But if you could just give us like sort of one sentence that you would use to describe yourself and what would you do, how would you go about doing that?
I design digital products that enhance people's muscle growth and fat loss.
There you
That's
go.
what I do. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. You don't actually coach anyone anymore. Is that correct?
Nah, just for fun. I coach my friends, my training partners to some extent, and my wife, and that's about it.
Awesome. And sporting background wise, you're bodybuilding and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah, so in high school I wrestled and I did powerlifting for a long time in college, and then I started bodybuilding and I picked up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I currently am bodybuilding and doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at the same time.
Nice. And right now you're sort of prioritizing the bodybuilding side of things. Are you entering a show
Yeah,
this summer?
a little bit. Yeah, so I'm trying to get lean enough so that I can do a show later this year.
Awesome.
And currently I'm finishing up a really interesting diet that was 16 weeks long of hypocaloric dieting. And I've lost a whole lot of weight, probably like 20 kilos or something total over the past 35 weeks. I've lost like 20 kilos and something like 12 kilos or something over the last 16 weeks. So it's been pretty intense.
Yeah, and you've been sharing your journey like really well on Instagram, and you seem to have gained a bigger and bigger following. Like literally, like this year, it's like exploded, right?
Well, for sure. I guess people like you can say all kinds of things you want, but when you're jacked and lean, people tend to listen a little bit more.
Yeah. You're saying very much the similar sort of things that you have been like for the past few years about the basics, especially in terms of hypertrophy. But now it seems that you really look at the part, people are like, oh, I guess he did know what he was talking about the whole time.
Yeah, it helps to look the part for sure.
Awesome. I guess we'll just get straight into the questions. So we've got a bunch of questions that I've personally put together, and then there's a few that I've asked on Instagram, which usually is not always a great thing with the questions that come up. And so particularly I found some good joy in annoying your colleague Dr. James with the Instagram questions.
Excellent. He gets annoyed with those pretty easily.
He seems to love them. Absolutely love them. So I guess we can start off with, as we were just talking about you having two competing sports almost with bodybuilding and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Is there a way that you can sort of give us a background on how someone could structure their training if they're really trying to look for as much hypertrophy as possible, or just any sort of hypertrophy, but they're also training rugby where we're doing, it's a full contact sport that they're training probably twice a week and they have games on the weekends. How would you go about managing, the demands of both of those sort of sports?
Yeah, so the number one thing is to know your total maximum recoverable volume, and that's something you just learn through trial and error. You're going to, sort of the secret to getting bigger and to getting better at rugby is to do more of those things. But at some point, you do so many of both of them combined that your total body's ability to recover is going to be superseded. And then when you're no longer recovering, you're by definition getting worse. And then you get worse and worse and worse and probably get hurt. So what you have to do is start with, I would recommend start with a smaller amount of whatever amount of rugby you currently play, and then start threading in some hypertrophy training at a very small amount. Maybe add 2 sessions a week of lifting, full body or whatever muscles you want to hit to get jacked, and start with just 1 or 2 sets per muscle group per day, literally. It's just as easy as it is. And then slowly over several weeks, maybe over 8 weeks, add a set here and there if you seem like you're recovering week to week. And then at some point, you're going to be in a sort of full-fledged 2-day-a-week program. And you may find yourself to be recovering more than adequately from that, having pretty good results. And then you can do that for a while. But if you sort of want to take your hypertrophy to the next level, you can add a session. So you split up your body a little bit differently, or still do whole body, but do 3 days a week after taking a deload or, a period of a week where you train very little with weights and hopefully play very little rugby. And then you start again on 3 sessions a week and see how that goes, slowly adding volume. And after a while, you're going to find a place where any more sessions past maybe 4 or 5 or even 3 or any more sets per session is too much and you're not recovering and your playing sucks and you beat up and sore all the time. You're no longer making gains in the gym as far as rep strength. And then once you find that, that's about as much training as you can handle. And what you want to do is deload, drop down to the minimum amount of training that gets you jacked. So like keep your 3 or 4 sessions, but do very little volume per session. Again, 2 sets per muscle group or something. Slowly over the weeks, work up to the maximum recovery volume, deload and repeat the process and get stronger over time. That's probably how I would do it.
And so what would be your best markers of, our guys figuring out that they are absolutely recovering, or at what point would they realize that they're not recovering, I guess?
The easiest way to tell is in the gym. Like if you're getting stronger and you're using more weight every workout for same reps or more reps, then you're recovering. If you start to stall out on your gym strength and start to decline, you're definitely not recovering.
Mm-hmm.
And on the pitch in rugby, are you as fast as usual? Are you as athletic as usual? Are you playing to your normal statistical abilities as usual, or does every one of your teammates, you and your coach, think you've been off for the last week or two? And you can also feel it because your sleep might be not as great. Your appetite might decline, actually. You'll feel sort of stressed out. You really feel unathletic. James calls it like dick fingers or something like that, where you can't catch the ball to save your life. Yeah. So you really experience an active reduction in athleticism, while at the same time feeling really burdened and sore and joints hurt, and your performance is declining. All of those factors together means you're almost certainly not recovering. Any one factor by itself, 50-50, maybe you are, maybe you're not. But if all those factors are present, or most of them present together, then you're starting to look at an under-recovery situation.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. And I guess that's why it's so key that you keep a good record of your training, because that way you want to stay ahead of that. If you're in season, say you've got a really big game, you don't want to be having dick fingers during that game.
Well, totally. And if I can add to that, people will see, people agree, like they'll say, yeah, it makes sense that I don't want to train more than I can recover from. And you say, okay, so that means you have to sort of know like how much is too much. And they're like, mm-hmm. And you go, okay, what did you do last week in training? And they're like, well, I remember, I think, you're like, okay, it's already wrong. Like, that's why you got to write stuff down. So you can look over your journal. You have to know very well what it is you're doing. And then you can put numbers to it. Not like finite, it's not exact numbers, 3.2 sets of leg press or something. I ran exactly 5.51 kilometers at the game, but rough numbers. I trained for 2 hours in rugby, and I did 4 sessions in the gym. They were pretty hard. And that seemed to be like pretty close to my limits. So that, when you have an important game coming up, that training that much is probably too much. And training half of that would really reduce some fatigue and make you super good at the game. So keeping at least some kind of records and getting to really learn your body, both from a personal qualitative perspective, but also a quantitative perspective, is probably the best way to go about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And would you say it's even worth keeping track of like your rugby training sessions as well? Because obviously the guys aren't really as in control, because they're just subject to whatever the coach makes them want to do, and so they would have to manage that, right?
They don't actually have to manage it, because they can manage their other stressors. Mm-hmm. They're in control of their weight training. So if rugby gets a little tough, then they can decline in their weight training a little bit to make up for it. But they should track rugby so that they know the interaction between the two. So for example, the question is, that 2 hard rugby workouts per week plus 1 hard game plus 4 sessions is pretty much your limit. Like sustainably, you can keep no more than that up.
Yeah.
So let's say the coach throws in another practice per week. Well, if you don't know how hard you're practicing or how much, how do you even adjust weight training? But if he throws in another hard practice, okay, that's at least 1, maybe 2 weight training sessions gone. So instead of 4 sessions a week, I'm going to do at most 3, maybe 2, right? So you should at very least keep track of what that individual is doing as far as coaching is concerned, because then you can know what you normally do. And if it's raised or if it's lowered, you can adjust the other variables to compensate.
Yeah, that makes sense. And still sort of trying to make progress, where I think that might be difficult. I discussed this the other week with Dr. Jacob Reed, where we were talking about the sometimes the real big difficulty in team sports where, strength and conditioning staff are removed from the actual coaches. And, you could get 2 weeks into a decent hypertrophy block and you're progressing on sets and volume pretty well, but then your team gets dicked on and the coach just says, right, we're going to run you all through the grinder for this week and you're going to do fitness, and it also almost then becomes really, really difficult for the guys to manage their own training from there. Is there any sort of recommendations you'd have for the guys like that? Would they just have to deload really early, or?
Yeah, deload early. So given that you can't sort of wimp out of practice and you have to do what the coach says, assuming that's the case, then you just have to take it as a given, and it's pointless to be frustrated about it and say, oh, I'm just going to train through it. That's not a good idea. Yeah. So your weight training is going to have to take a dedicated decline. I'll tell you this, a dedicated decline is when you purposefully reduce training volume and intensity. It's a whole lot better than a decline that happens in an auto-regulated fashion after the coach already fucked you in the ass. So like there's 2 kinds of declines. One is up to you. You say, okay, next week's going to suck, or this week sucks, so I'm going to deload. And the other kind of decline is I'm going to push through it. This week is hitting me. And all of a sudden I pull my hamstring doing stuff like a deadlift in the gym. And then you will reduce your training volume because you have to, because you don't have a functional fucking hamstring anymore. That's a very bad way to reduce training volume.
Yeah.
The other way is sort of in between the two, more, not as dramatic of a way, is that you just start to have shittier and shittier workouts. So your sort of plan is kind of thwarted. I'll give you a quick analogy. So if your plan is thwarted, it's kind of like, why did you even do the plan? You should have just stuck to something that would have worked. Remember, deloading doesn't make you worse. It just delays you getting better by a week. But making you worse is a lot worse than making you delayed. So, for example, let's say you have 2 meals to eat back to back, and one of the meals is you got to go to grandma's house and she's going to cook for you, and she really likes to watch you eat her food. And the other one is a meal, with friends at a restaurant, somebody's birthday party. And, so grandma's going to feed you, and she cooks incredibly well. So you're going to eat a lot. So when you go to the restaurant after that, are you going to try to order like a ton of food like you normally would with your friends, and you guys have a tradition of, let's see who can eat more cheesecake or something, knowing that grandma just screwed you over because you're super full and you can barely eat? Or are you going to show up to that restaurant, or in advance? Let's say they offer like some fancy restaurants. They're like, what are you going to be ordering in advance? You're going to look at the menu and there's going to be like mashed potatoes and steak, and then there's going to be like a tuna and asparagus. You're like, I'll take the tuna and asparagus. People are like, why? Like, just try eating the mashed potatoes and steak. It's really good. You'd be like, well, I know that I'm going to be full. Why would I order this? So coach is going to smash you, or you're already being smashed. Why would you try to push through? They don't give medals of honor in rugby, as far as I'm concerned, or certainly not in the gym for hypertrophy training. Do the intelligent thing. It's almost kind of another analogy is, if someone throws a good hard punch at you in a fight, do you just go like this and accept it to the face and see if you can take it? Yeah, if you're an idiot, totally. But what does a good fighter do? He ducks the punch and punches back. So deloading when the coach hits you up really hard in practice is like ducking the punch. It's the intelligent thing. And you got to take your ego out of it to make sure you're doing the right thing.
Beautiful. I got a Dr. Mike analogy nice and early. That's brilliant. I was looking forward to that. Yeah, and it's actually what sometimes, so when I coach some of my guys and we deal with their nutrition, sometimes that is what we do. They're like, I've got to eat out and I don't know how much I'm going to eat or whatever I'm going to be fed, or if I'm staying at my parents this weekend. And I'm like, take the minimum stuff with you that you need, just so that you know that whatever happens, you can either cover your bases, or you can, absolutely.
One of the greatest things ever is protein bars. So when I travel internationally quite a bit, and I cannot possibly rely on airplane food, because, to be honest, sometimes airplane food is like pretty fucking sweet. Like, they feed you pretty often and they give you lots of protein. You're like, this is awesome, right? Mm-hmm. And then other times, maybe most times, airplane food is a bit underwhelming. Like, it's tasty. I actually like the taste of airplane food, believe it or not. But the portions are just, especially with protein, it doesn't really matter what dieting phase you're in. If you're a larger muscular male, the protein portions are just wildly insufficient.
Yeah.
So what do? I take protein bars with me, and I always take enough protein bars with me to cover the entire flight and a just in case extended stay in customs after, because I don't want to be in a situation, sometimes you arrive at a foreign country and the customs queue is like 8 hours long or something. It's like an hour and a half longer than you thought. I don't want to come up to the customs agent hypoglycemic or something, who's just really hungry, and he's like, so what are you doing in Australia? And I'm like, I try to eat
fucking in.
Yeah, I mean, mate, I need to eat. So it's just that's not tenable. So if you cover your bases with just real simple, do I love eating protein bars on a plane? Well, the other passengers have a bigger problem with it because I fart a lot. I'm just kidding. I take the non-sugar alcohol kind. But is it do I want to leave myself open to the possibility that I'm going to be relying on factors outside of my control? No. And people say bring protein bars everywhere you go. That's kind of crazy. Gee, it's probably not that crazy. You stuff 4 or 5 protein bars into your, I have a fanny pack for a bum bag or whatever you guys call it. What do you guys call it over there? Bum bag, fanny pack?
Fanny. I mean, I live in the States, so I call it a fanny pack. But yeah, they call it a bum bag.
Bum bag, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll take one of those and stuff protein bars in there. I have a backpack. I always travel with a backpack. I stuff them in there. It's really not that hard. You could say it's kind of crazy if you're taking chicken breast and broccoli with you everywhere you go, right? I've got my cooler, nobody touches my cooler. But protein bars, oh my God, they're so easy. And alternatively, if you have really interesting macro setup, you can take a couple of baggies of protein powder and take a shaker, and they give you water everywhere, because never in any part of the Western world where they don't give you water upon request. You mix the protein in your shaker, and boom, there you go. There's your meal. So it's really easy to stay prepared enough to make things go really well. Is it possible to be prepared enough for things to go optimally? No, like life doesn't allow for that unless you're living at home and have all your controlled variables, which you can do. But if you travel or stay at mom and dad's or you got a game, you can at least do a really good job. And I think, if I may go on this rant really quick, the rant's almost over, but
no, keep going.
A lot of people have this real big confusion that it sort of tells them, like, if I'm not optimal, if I don't have my meals, like I don't have my chicken breast or I don't have my broccoli, then it's all pointless. I might as well just not eat. For the people that aren't big eaters, like if they don't have the perfect meals, they just skip a meal. Yeah. And for the people that are too big of eaters, they just have like cookies and cheesecake or something like that. And so it's one of those things where it's like, well, you can do a real good job and not the perfect job with just protein bars or something. And some people have this sort of either or attitude or bias to extremes, and they miss out the really good stuff.
Yeah, and actually, first tangent, I have to bring up the fact that I've been to Menno Henselman's seminar before, and he's told us all that he's genuinely taken Tupperware with him and like full prepared meals.
That's in contest prep, yeah, totally. And sometimes in contest prep, that's what has to happen. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I mean, you get a few weird looks, but I mean, shit, you're in control of your meals fully then. And then the other point I was going to make there was like, a lot of people will always say that you can't gain muscle during the rugby season. You have to wait till off season. And what you said there is sort of almost nailed it. Like, yeah, I would absolutely agree that you can't gain muscle optimally because you've got, at least 2 or 3 occasions where you've got 100 kilo plus guys running into you as hard as they can. Obviously, that's not the best conditions to gain muscle, but that doesn't mean just because they're not the best conditions doesn't mean that you can't do it at all.
Yeah. And more specifically, even if you can't gain muscle during rugby season, you can maintain either all of it or a lot of it. And I think, again, athletes tend to suffer from this, actually, sometimes more than bodybuilders, is they tend to have this approach of like, I got my meals, I got my nutrition, I got my weight training really, really dialed in off season. Then they switch to rugby mode and start playing games, and everything kind of goes to hell, and they just turn into regular people that play rugby. They start missing lifting sessions, or they start slacking off on lifting, and their nutrition goes to hell. Oh, I'm so stressed out after the game. After the game, they go have pizza and some beers, and then the next morning they have a donut or something. Like, oh yeah, practice, and they'll have a protein shake. It's one of those things that they can't seemingly do the sort of battle of a rugby season and simultaneously live a regimented lifestyle. And you don't have to live a perfectly regimented lifestyle, but you have to do at least as good of a job to keep up as much muscle as possible. And the thing is, it's not just for vanity purposes, just because you want to stay jacked all the time. The people that retain the most muscle through the rugby season are going to be their best as far as movement, as far as health of their connective tissues, and as far as being able to fuck other people up with strength and power. They're going to be their best at the end of the season, relatively speaking, to all the other people that slacked off. Like, that's why it's a really big deal to lift through the season and eat well through the season, because when are the most important rugby games? They're towards the end. And a lot of other people who aren't putting in the work, they started out maybe even better than you, but they decline through the season. And this has been studied time and time again. Most teams in objective performance metrics tend to decline over the course of the season, especially in strength power sports. The teams that can decline the least, the individuals that can decline the least from this kind of diligent behavior, from not partying as much, from sleeping more, from eating better, from making sure your training is as on point as it can be, is one of those things that, a team, I've actually seen this. We literally had this one year when I was a sports scientist with my colleague, Ashley Kavanaugh, who's also an RP member. One year when I was doing the sports sciencing, we had sports scientists for a game, for a volleyball team. And we did this for several years. We did it for 3 years. We worked with a team super closely, and the coach really bought into the program. Lindsay Devine, she actually is, I think, head coach now for Alabama, which is a real big deal. Nice. And she's super awesome, and she really bought into the sports science stuff. So we had a large degree of interaction between the volleyball playing, the nutrition, and the weights. And the girls, by the coach and by our relationship with them, took the weights very, very seriously. So mine and Ashley's, I believe, last season, or mine certainly last season with the team, they won their regional championships, which was a really, really big deal. And the way they did it was they actually beat a team who had won it numerous times before, and they beat that team very convincingly, but they had lost to that team earlier in the season. And the thing is, that team, we knew for a fact, because we knew about them, they did not take their weight training seriously. None of their girls are very muscular. They were very technically sound. But when your technique starts to get a little sloppy in season, some of the better girls get hurt, maybe your shoulder's not as strong as it was. Our girls were lifting the entire time. They simply didn't decline as much, or maybe even at all. And the way they won that game was just like a convincing power smash. It was like, oh my God, this is two different teams. They were jumping higher, they had more energy, and the other girls just seemed like they were just done, right? So people assume like, oh, the season I get degraded, rugby and soccer and all these other sports. Yes, but you can get degraded less by staying.
That's awesome, and that must have been awesome to actually witness that, like, come firsthand. Because it's always good when you know, because we deal a lot in sports science with a lot of theoretical stuff, and it's on a field, so you're never really gonna completely govern it. But to see it come firsthand, that must have been like pretty cool.
It was a magical experience. I tell you, one of the things that we did during the actual tournament that they won was after all of their games, they had multiple games per day. We would get them to a restaurant or get them back to the hotels and feed them lots of delicious carbohydrates to replenish the glycogen stores. They were ordered with dinner to make sure they had either pasta or rice, have multiple pieces of bread, have at least one drink of lemonade or something like that. Mm-hmm. And in the evening after dinner, we'd come home and they would eat like cookies or brownies or something like that. And the coaches would all hang out in the same sort of coach rec area, and we weren't there, but our coach was. And she was talking to the other coaches of the other teams, and she was like, all right, I got to get going. I got to buy donuts for my girls. And they were like, donuts? And they're like, yeah, we're repleting glycogen. Our sports scientists said it's a good idea. And they're like, you have sports scientists? They're like, yeah. They make you eat donuts during like this, because, most conventional thinking is like, donuts are not sport food, right? You're at a tournament, you're supposed to be eating chicken and broccoli or something stupid, right? Something completely insane, or carrots or something. So when we programmed that, she was like, all right, got to go get the donuts. And they were like, what is going on? And then we swept the tournament and they were like, well, I guess sports science is kind of a thing. So it was really cool to be able to give actual, practical advice and watch it be lived. I think that's what real sports science is all about, is really getting to see your effective theory be applied and bear fruit.
Yeah. And then I think just hammering home that point of like still using what got you to the season during the season, because it's sometimes because you can also have games where you don't even do shit, and then that means you've had 2 weeks almost of deloading, and
totally,
you're like, oh, it's okay, I get all of my sprint work. Like some of my guys, if they don't work hard in the game, they'll tell me, and we'll get sprint sessions in the next day just because they've come off the bench and maybe only played 10 minutes. Well, you're not going to program the same stuff for that guy as a guy that played 80 minutes and it took about 1 million different collisions during that time.
100%. It's really interesting to watch people just completely abandon the training and the eating that got them to where they are during season. And also, I would say this: to me, it's always much easier to coach athletes that want to do a little bit too much and rein them in, versus athletes that don't want to do enough. If you don't want to do enough, I just really don't know what to tell you, because at the end of the day, we all live in the modern Western world full of conveniences. Life is good. You don't have to play rugby. You don't even have to be good at rugby. I don't know what to tell you. You want to be good? You want to win? Do this. And I've actually given a few athletes, it's an okay pep talk. I don't know if it's a pep talk. It's kind of a come to Jesus talk. I've given it a few athletes, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But at some point, I'm like, do you like winning or do you not care? And they're like, well, of course I like winning. Well, then do this, because sometimes I think athletes see coaching staff and sports scientists and other people involved as people who just kind of say stuff, and I don't know what their motives are so much. Sometimes they need to be reminded that we give a shit about winning. Like, I'm not, I'm interested in your safety, sure, but only insofar as you're an athletic machine that wins. Like, if you're safe but not good at sport, I don't care. I care about you as much as I care about any other human being. I hope you're well, but like, I'm not trying to like keep you especially safe or make sure you do some kind of movement patterns that I like. I just want you to win, damn it. And the reason I tell you to do all this stuff is because it's going to make you win. Do you want to win? And they're like, yes, then do the stuff. And they're like, okay. Yeah. And if you don't want to win to some extent, it's okay. If I was a head coach, I'd probably feel differently because my job would depend on it. But I was a sports scientist. I was just sort of passing through. I was learning stuff. And I tell them, you don't want to win. I had a professor job already. I was off next year. I was like, I'm going next year to be a professor. I don't care. To me, I'm just involved with this volleyball club in a sort of like, as a career basis. I don't get a ring. If you guys win, if I got a ring, I would wear one. I'm not into rings. I'm into independence. But you girls put 4 years of your lives into this stuff. Maybe show up. And the good thing is I never really had to give volleyball that talk because they were warriors. But some other teams and some other individuals, people like in a rugby club, I can understand, like you said, the guys are blue belts or whatever, and sort of like, it's like, they're sort of whatever to, they want to be good, but sometimes they got a lot of other stuff in life going on, and that's totally cool. But especially with professional athletes, Division I collegiate athletes, it's kind of like, this is why you're here. I have no idea why you're not doing what it takes. And even for the, I'll go a little further, even for the guys like, the rugby guys that play for your club and various other folks that play sort of more recreationally, you still, why are you playing if you don't either enjoy it or like winning? Do you like winning? Of course you like fucking winning. That's why they keep score, right? If you really just like the game, you would just play with mates and just fucking just toss the ball around and that would be it. But you show up, you physically run to a location where there's people blocking you. They're trying to hurt you. You're trying to hurt them because you want the score to go up on your side and not on theirs. So why don't you do everything else that it takes to do that so you can have more victories? It just doesn't make any damn sense the other way around.
Yeah, so good. And I'm a head coach of a men's club here as well. And I say that regularly to the guys. I'm like, look, I'm making you do the fitness because that makes your games easier, because that means we're going to have a better chance of winning. Like, if you don't want to do this fitness, that's fine. But we're not going to we're just not going to win games, and we're going to go down to a lower division and play against shithole teams that we can easily beat. But then you don't even need me. So
one of the most psychologically, I don't know if I want to say confusing, maybe infuriating things I've ever seen is athletes that I knew for a fact slacked off all fucking season and bitched and moaned at any amount of work, crying after their team loses a big game.
Yeah.
The girls that put their lives on the line, that trained every day that they had to, that did all the work, that did the diet, when they cry, my heart hurts with them. I want to cry seeing them cry.
Yeah.
When those other girls cry, those other guys that did not do what it takes clearly and bitched every way, they're crying, oh my God, I can't believe we won. What the fuck are you talking about? I can believe you lost. You should believe it too. Mm-hmm. Why are you crying? That is infuriating to me. That's like, every time there's a big game, one of the teams wins, usually the cameraman never pass up an opportunity to pan towards the other athletes crying. Yeah. And James and I, when we watch games together, I'll always turn and be like, James, what % of those people crying do you think are chump motherfuckers who just skated by the season? And he's like, dude, at least half. And it's just like trying to pick them out. Like, what are you crying for?
I think some of it still, though, like the slacking off in the fitness and stuff, I wrote about this last week. I think it comes from like a systemic thing where we see fitness as a punishment. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you did bad. Give me push-ups, or go take this run, or do burpees. And you're always thinking, oh crap, I'm being punished. Where like, no, like fitness is like something that you get to do to make you better.
We had a policy. This was initiated by Dr. Stone, our boss at ETSU, and it worked really well. We threaded it down to the volleyball coaches, and they loved it. They learned to love it. They used to punish people through physical tasks, but we started to try to change the culture over there and be like, physical tasks make you better. And if they make you worse, then why the fuck are we doing them? Like, athletes are machines that you want finely tuned. So any physical inputs are going to just either tune that machine right or wrong. Like, if your race car doesn't cross the finish line where you want, you don't kick the car because you're going to dent the carbon fiber. And then the car's worse, right? Yeah. So if you want to take it out on the car somehow, you got to find a way that's not going to interfere with the car. So same with a volleyball player. So what did we do? Because sometimes people step out of line, and you got to make sure to sort of lay the law down as a coach. So what do you do? When there were various infractions, coach made the girls write papers. I want you to write a 3-page essay on why you did something wrong and how you're going to change. Dude, I swear to God, incidents of infractions fell because they're athletes, right? You're like, sprint. They're like, fuck it, I'm a warrior. I'm going to sprint this off and earn my trust. And you give them a paper and they're like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. And like, can't I just do sprints? Like, no, you can't just do sprints. And like, but I feel so much better if I can work this off. Like, you don't understand. You erred. There is no working it off. You were in the wrong, and you're going to get punished. You're going to write a paper, and then you're going to prove to us that you understand why you were wrong. And then when we go to the gym, we go to the gym to engineer your athletic machinery. So you should want to be in there. It is not a freeing experience. You don't train in order to feel better so that you walk around and feel like you did something bad. You train in order to enhance your abilities. Mm-hmm. Once we instituted that, it was, I think, a super, super effective thing. But almost nobody calls from that culture. I remember in wrestling, my freshman year, I was a scumbag in wrestling. I think it was my junior year. I had the kind of sophomore year, I had an awakening that I was like, I wanted to be a good athlete. And I was starting to think more because I was 16 years old. I was starting to get a little smarter and more sort of philosophically aware. Mm-hmm. And I remember the coaches were doing we were doing drills, and we did like stair climbs and stair runs. And they were meant as punishment. And I was like smiling and laughing and like I was loving it. And I was like failing and almost falling off the steps. And they're like, you're crazy, Israetel. What the hell's wrong with you? And I was like, this is good. We're trying it. Like, this makes us better wrestlers, right? Yeah. And they're like, yeah. And like, so we should enjoy it. And they're like, I guess you're right. You're nuts. It was kind of like everyone else, not everyone else, but most of the guys hated it, and they were taught to hate it. And then by the time they get to play in rugby, they were taught a lifetime of fitness is punishment. And it shouldn't be. Fitness feels like punishment, but it's a really good thing. So I think keeping that in mind is the more that changes in sport, the better. I don't know if it's changing a lot, and I don't know if anyone's pushing it through, but it should be nice.
Yeah, I don't think it is as much as you should be, especially because, like we said earlier, with the disconnect between like actual sports coaches and sports scientists. But
which is, I mean,
you make some great points. Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the real stuff that we want to get into is like real hypertrophy talk. And so I'd like to first ask you, just in general, like, because most of our guys are just general gym goers, like in terms of trying to gain muscle, like what would you say is the most common mistake you see with people that are trying to gain muscle? Besides, we've already said the logbook. So besides the fact that they now know that they want to gain muscle and they now know what they're doing week to week.
Inconsistency, knowing what you need to do and not doing it.
Yeah.
You can show me a guy who's doing pretty bad technique. You can show me a guy who's doing partial range of motion and things that aren't safe in the long term. But show me a guy who shows up to the gym and puts in a decent amount of effort regularly, and I'll show you someone who's probably going to get much more muscular.
Yeah.
If you try to break down what it is that, like, so for example, you watch videos of bodybuilders, pro bodybuilders. Sometimes their technique's not great. Sometimes their, training structure is fucking weird. Sometimes they don't seem to know anything, but they know which muscles they want to train. They feel out the exercises. They feel those muscles generate tension through, and they hit it hard, but they come back next week, and they come back next week, and next session, and next week, and next session, and next week. And then after years and years and years, they're jacked. If you look at everyone on the Olympia stage, the most hypertrophied men on the planet, there's not a single fucking person there that hasn't put in at least 10 years, most of those guys 20 years, into weight training on an unbelievably regular basis. The guys that keep coming back, hitting it hard, those are the guys. So, because people are looking for there's honestly another, I guess I'm really sore today. So too few carbs, and I'm super pissed. I hate when people who have never shown any ability to be consistent ask me overly technical sports science questions about hypertrophy.
I get it all the time.
All the time. So what rep range should I be in? Show the fuck up and do this rep range, that rep range, any reps, right? And the real answer is anything between 5 and 30 reps is very effective for hypertrophy. So it's almost the question's a non-starter to begin with, but somebody who is already super consistent can be given a really cool talk about the spectrum of rep ranges, about how most of your reps probably need to be in the 10 to 20 range if you want general hypertrophy, about what the upsides and downsides are of inclusion of 5 to 10 rep ranges, and 20 to 30 rep ranges, and so on and so forth. That's a complicated discussion, sort of outside of their pay grade, so to speak. If they just aren't being consistent, it doesn't. If you're not being consistent, nothing matters. And I have all the time in the world to answer questions and be interested in folks who are pounding it in the gym, showing up, and they want to know more. And then other shit matters: range of motion, progressive overload, kind of lifts you, program structure. But the shit that really matters is showing up week to week, day to day. And it doesn't mean overtraining. It doesn't mean like, oh yeah, it's what is it? Hashtag 7 days, hashtag no days off, or whatever.
No days off, yeah.
Yeah, team no days off. There's no team like that, motherfucker. Where's your jersey at? There's nobody paying you to be on that team. Ain't no team, right? So it doesn't have to be. It could be 3 days off, right? But if the other 4 days you train, and maybe you don't want to make it 4 days every week. Maybe you make it 3 some weeks. Maybe you make it 2 some weeks. But maybe you make it 5 some weeks. On average, over the year, you make it 3 or 4 times a week to training, you're going to get results. You are. And then everything else is just details after that. So, and people are saying, well, what should I do? Train the muscles you want hard. Like, what does that mean? Like, you can just make up what that means. Are your pecs pumped? No. Train them more. Are they sore? No. Train them a little more. Do you feel your pecs? No. Are they tired? Are they accumulating lactate? No. Train them. But can I give more detailed answers to that? Fuck yeah, of course. I'm currently writing the scientific principles of hypertrophy training. That's probably 300 pages of detailed answers to every single one of those questions in a sort of intricate multi-layer fashion. But that's all per the idea that you want to come in and hit it hard. Once I have that from you, we can take you as scientifically, legitimately, you can be as close to Jared Feather as you want, right? Or as you can get genetically. But short of that, I got nothing for you. So just to reiterate my pet peeve, you don't show up and put in the work, what kind of squat should I do? Get the fuck out of my face. How's that how's that first squat?
Yeah, that's awesome to hear you say that, because it's one of the biggest things that I always just harp on is consistency. It's whatever you can do to keep you consistent. If that's you going in the gym twice, fuck yeah, that's fine, because the program that's like 50, 60, even fucking 40% optimal that you do every single week is better than trying to get everything perfect. And even I think a lot of guys fall into the trap of because they try and get everything so perfect. They're unrealistic, and then they burn themselves out within 10 days, and then they can't show up anymore.
The worst thing, maybe not the worst, one of the worst things I'll ever hear from guys at the gym asking me tips was like, yeah, haven't been training for 2 months, but I'm coming back. Like, what program do you think I should do? I'm like,
Doesn't matter.
Cart before horse, my friend. Just start training.
Yeah.
Give me 6 months of good training, just your own bullshit, and then your program will start to be effective. But some of these guys, they quit lifting every couple of months for a couple of months. And so they answer the question of what program they should do. You can't do a program. You know what I mean? Like, why am I telling you this? It's like, it's, for example, like, you have no intention. Your schedule is not clear for you to go to London to visit and to see London. And so you ask someone, hey, what are the sites I should see in London? Be like, when are you going to London? Why not? What the fuck am I telling you sites for? I'm going to spend 20 minutes telling you about like all the big plays I want. No, like, that's just nonsense. When you have your tickets booked, I'll send you all the sites you want.
Yeah, that's absolutely spot on. And I'll do that with people that, if they get in contact and they sign up and they want a program and stuff, I'm like, right, let's get you in the gym, and fuck it, you just go on the treadmill like every day, or however many times you can make it to the gym. You just go and you get on the treadmill and you get used to a few pieces of equipment, and that way you're used to going into that gym. Once you've got that habit established, then we'll fucking worry about program.
100%.
Yeah, man.
That's a super great approach. It's almost like a flower grows. Like, you start with a real unimpressive core of like, I want you to do a pushing exercise, a pulling exercise, and a leg exercise twice a week, and do it for like 3 or 4 sets each time. And they're like, okay, but is that optimal? Is that enough? Like, shut up. No, it's not optimal. You are not capable of exerting optimal efforts yet. Yeah. Once you start to gain traction doing that, you start to bloom a little bit, and all these really cool patterns come out. Eventually, you're doing a face potentiated 6-day-a-week dual session routine, and you're super jacked. That's going to take years. And you could take months to get to that level of complexity, but at every step of the way, you have to prove that you want it. Another really quick, maybe not pet peeve, sort of fear of mine, and this may be a little bit irrational, but I've coached enough. I used to coach all the time. I still consult quite a bit. To where this is, I don't know if you ever experienced this. I'm sure you have as a rugby coach. Just like I hate giving advice to people that aren't doing anything or trying, I'm uncomfortable with people that seem to do really well and have a really great adherence, but try to expand a little too soon, too quickly. Not in the sense of expand in their how much work they're doing, but in the complexity of the work. Like, yeah, I started eating all this food, everything's great. I'm eating my meals. They take pictures. They send you pictures. Like, wow, you're really doing a really good diet. Like, it's been 2 weeks. They're like, okay, what kind of protein powder should I get? Because I'm really serious about this. I just want to be like, you're gonna burn yourself out. Why do I say that? Because I've seen it so many times. Like, I'm sure you get this question a lot, like, what protein powder is best? You're like, mate, just eat meat 3 or 4 times a day. And as far as what protein powder is best, I literally have given this answer before. Go to Walmart or Sam's Club or GNC, just get whatever's on sale, whatever's cheap. Yeah, and they're like, really?
That's
like,
what I do.
yeah,
that's exactly what I tell people.
That's the protein powder I buy. Like, there's, first of all, it doesn't matter unless you have digestive difficulties. And second of all, like, why don't you grow your easy muscle for now doing the easy shit, so that when you're competing in the IFBB professional league and you want to make the 212 Olympia, you can do the hard shit, like figuring out which protein powder to take. Then it might make enough of a difference for you to worry about. But people have a wavelength. It's kind of like buying your first computer and spending 4 hours at Best Buy getting the one with the maximum like video game interface and sound. And somebody's like, do you play video games? You're like, no, but I could get into it eventually. Like, dude, just get a $400 laptop. You're going to, it's your first computer. You're going to learn how to use it. You're going to love it. It's going to be super productive. And if and when you have the need to expand, you can always expand and get another computer. With lifting, you don't even have to get another anything else. You just add sections, add exercises, add layers of complexity. I love the beginning, simpler approach and folding into the approach that's more complicated in due time.
Yeah, and just being patient with the whole thing. Like you said, the top bodybuilders, the top people that grow the most muscle, they've been in there for 10 plus years. So, it's and they haven't gained 10 kilos every single year for those 10 years. Otherwise, fucking hell,
Right.
So,
exactly.
slow progress is still good progress.
Totally. And it's the only kind of progress that's sustainable. I'll tell you what, one thing while we're on the subject,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what really unifies the biggest guys. And it's all because they work hard and for long periods of time. That's it. But I'll tell you what underpins that in my experience. The guys that get to be their genetic best ever towards the end of their careers, they're the guys that love training. Like somebody like John Meadows comes to mind. John Meadows just loves to train in the gym. So how's John Meadows put together a 25-year-long stellar bodybuilding career? Where's he going? Nowhere. He's going to show up to the gym. He's retired now from bodybuilding, as far as I know. He still goes to the gym. He still works out. He loves it. One of my training partners, Charlie Jung, he's an elite powerlifter, squat at 800 pounds. His body is like a little bit sort of disarray right now for various powerlifting injuries. So he's like doing bodybuilding for some time. People ask him, like, why the switch to bodybuilding? Like, you're done with powerlifting. Like, do you have a passion for bodybuilding? He's like, no, not really. And they're like, so why are you doing it? He's like, because I want to train. I like training. So the guys, it's people like, oh man, like, I'm sure you get this every now and again. People say like, oh, like how often do you work out? And you tell them, they're like, oh, it must take a lot of dedication. I'm saying, not really, because I want to be in the gym. Sometimes it takes dedication when you don't want to, like those little bits of time when you're like, okay, I have a session planned, but I'd rather just sit at home and eat. But man, that's really the minority of cases. The majority of cases is honestly like when you just really you just want to be in the gym. You just want to train. So how do the biggest guys in the world get to be the biggest guys in the world? A, they like to train. They like to be in the gym. B, they at least don't hate to eat. And they usually like to eat. And they usually like to eat not relatively boring foods, but they like to eat meat and starches and veggies. And that's how they eat. Yeah. And they like the idea of getting stronger and bigger, and they just show up all the time. Some of the best bodybuilders in the world were guys that just happened to be 110 kilos training after 10 years. And some guys like, you should do a show. And they're like, okay. And they started doing shows and they fell in love with that process. But, you look at them and you're like, clearly this is a competitor. A guy's never competed in his life. So why the hell did he get this big? Like sometimes, here's another really thing, evidence to this effect. I've been training before, and this was actually on my mass phase going up a year and a half ago to where I wasn't going to be competing in bodybuilding on purpose for 2 years because I was going to put on muscle mass, and the process thankfully worked excellently because I'm like way bigger than I was. Mm-hmm. And I was looking, I was still pretty lean after finishing a cut, and I was lean most of the time anyway, lean enough for regular people to be like, holy shit, that's a huge fucking jacked guy with veins. And I would have people ask me every now and again, like, like maybe not even pull the shirt off, but have a tank top and be doing like curls or dips or something. And people will say, oh man, you getting ready for something? And just be like, no. And the answer would confuse them. They'd be like, you're not training for anything? I'm like, well, no, I'm a bodybuilder. I'm just putting on muscle. And they're like, you don't have a show plan? I just want to be like, people train just to get better, right? Yeah. That's most training. Yeah. I don't understand the mentality of like, if you don't have a show coming up, you don't train hard. Yeah, guys that suck, that's how they think. Guys that are good, they're in the gym anyway. Ronnie Coleman, nobody ever had to talk him into going into the gym, period. As a matter of fact, that the story of the guy who was 110 kilos for no reason, that is Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie Coleman was just jacked and lean for no reason. And his gym owner was like, hey, I'll pay for your bodybuilding show. You can have free membership here forever in the gym, which you pay anyway if you compete. And he's like, okay. And he just won 8 Olympias just like that.
Yeah. And that's like, and that reminds me of, I've interviewed 2 of my boys that are athletes on my roster, and they both, like, they don't see it as hard work. Like, anyone else would step back and take a look and they go, oh, God, these guys are dedicated. And they're like, no, I just really enjoy this. And
love rugby.
The enjoyment of the training and enjoyment of the process is fucking huge.
Yeah. It's interesting. In rugby and in wrestling and stuff like that, they'd be like, man, like, how do you, like, psych up to tackle someone? And be like, what do you mean? And they're like, how do you, like, make sure, like, like, you got to, like, psych up to do it? You're like, I love tackling people. I like hitting people. I want to hit people. I have to psych down not to hit people at the airport. You ever see someone walking at the airport and you're like, oh my God, I could run up and double leg the fuck out of that person, right? Like, that's me in jiu-jitsu and wrestling. And it's kind of like, the reason I go to jiu-jitsu is because I always want to fuck shit up, and that just happens to be an outlet. So, if you don't want to, like, if you don't enjoy the sport you're doing and the training isn't, at least most of the time, an awesome thing you love to do, you don't have to play rugby.
On that note, do you have any sort of ways that guys can sort of cultivate that like enjoyment?
Totally. Number one, just psychologically admit to yourself that you should be enjoying the sport. Stop consuming media materials that talk about the grind and the suffering and the hate, and start consuming media materials that talk about the passion and the love and the enjoyment. One thing I do, like when I scroll on Instagram just for shits and giggles, I follow a bunch of bodybuilders and follow their accounts. And some of the posts I like the most are just, this sounds really interesting, but like them training, them eating, and them sometimes talking about how much they love training and eating. And when I'm not training or eating, let's say I'm sitting on an airplane or something, I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to train and I can't wait to eat. I love this stuff. It's like they're talking about it, not like, oh man, another fucking meal. Fucking hate this shit, man. They're like, oh, this is great. And when you train yourself, try to enjoy it. Like some people, here's an example. Some people will train completely covered up. Take your fucking shirt off when you get a pump. Look at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
People will judge you. They're like, oh, you're looking at yourself. What the fuck do you think I train for, motherfucker? I train to look at myself in the mirror and occasionally on pictures and occasionally on stage. Fuck. I'm trying to be big. Of course I look at myself. There's a whole fucking point. And people be like, oh, you can't go to a gym with no mirrors? I prefer not to, right?
Yeah.
Or like, power lifters, when they hit a new PR in the squat, like take a minute and be like, yes, I'm a fucking living God. Not be like, oh man, that was good, but I gotta do more. What the fuck is wrong with you? Of course you have to do more, but it should be do more out of a bonus round type of thinking, not out of, oh, I ain't shit. Like when you're playing rugby, when you're practicing rugby, take it all in, smell the fucking pitch. You know what I'm saying? Enjoy the burn, enjoy hitting motherfuckers. There's guys that'll hit you and they smile afterwards. Those are psychotic fucks you don't want to play against. They're the ones that have it all figured out. So the way to cultivate that is first and foremost to understand that you're supposed to be cultivating that. Does that make sense? Like, it's absolutely supposed to be fun. And because guys will get confused to be like, this is a job for, like, some professional bodybuilders will be like, this is work for me. Like, okay, you can say that, but I hope you love your job. Other posts to be like, I love my job, which is good. But the guys who are like, this is work, I hate contest prep, I just got to get through it. It's like, you're not going to last. And most of those guys don't last.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I have two real good points on that. Is that every person I've ever seen that has hashtagged the grind or done something like that, where they've said it, they've always stopped for 6 months or a year, and they've just dropped off because you burn yourself out. And like, if you see it always as a negative thing, you're just never going to be able to keep it up.
100%.
And the other one is that all the chicks that I see that are like, well, I just started working on fitness, so I entered a bikini show. All of them are always fat a year later. All of them, because that's no way to get into fitness.
Yeah. Do you like to look good? Yes. Do you like to train with weights? Yes. Do you like fundamentally to eat healthy foods mostly? Yes. You will be in shape. You will be in shape for a long ass time. You're going to be in shape as you age. If you're doing it for some kind of like external goal, like I want to do a bikini show, like good luck. Good luck. A lot of the best bikini competitors, a lot of the best figure competitors are like people like ex-gymnasts. They just love training. And then when gymnastics is over, they're like, I'm just going to go to the gym and train. And then somebody's like, hey, you have a really good physique. Do you want to do the competition? And they're like, okay. They're not like, I'm going to be there's this one girl back in the day who would hashtag her shit future bikini pro or something, or future physique pro. This was after 3 months of being introduced to weight training and diet.
Oh.
Guess what she's doing now?
Not being a bikini pro.
Correct. And it is for lack of trying, right? It's not like she's still grinding, but she's not a pro yet. That would be, sucks to say future pro. You'll never hear me say it like that. But at least, someone's still in the mix. She's not in the mix. She quit a year and 6 months after. Just completely quit. Just rerouted her entire life. Yeah. What a fucking debacle. Why would you ever do that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about the long term. And I mean, to the point where it feels kind of pointless asking these hypertrophy specific questions that I've got from my guys, because I'm like, who gives a fuck about how to set up, and this is a question, it's how to set up a metabolite focused chest/back workout. Like, fuck, whichever way you want to set it up. Like,
so wait, I can answer that question super quickly. So you make sure that you sandwich the movements with their own body parts and not alternating, because metabolites have to be summated. You don't want to do chest back, because it flushes them out. You want to do back, rest, chest. Do a lot of supersets, do a lot of drop sets, make sure you get a full range of motion, and do most of your sets in a rep range that on a first set, if you tried really hard, you could fail anywhere between 15 and 30 reps. There's your answer, right? But the secret is taking that and doing it over and over, and then you'll be jacked.
Yeah, figuring out one of the 1,000 ways that you can make that work for you. Whereas 100%. If you're doing the other superset where you're doing opposing body parts, that's more for convenience / time saving, right?
Exactly, 100%. That's great general fitness, but it's not the most hypertrophic way to train.
Beautiful. All right, I think we'll round it off there, man. Because as I say, Dr. Mike, there's no point asking these. And there's not really any great questions, and I think we've covered everything that people need to hear from you. I'm sure.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I mean, I can always come back on later or something and answer more specific.
Beautiful, yeah.
Now that we've got all the rants out of the way, but I think some of the stuff is important to hear every now and again.
It really is, and it's beautiful to have you come on and say that, because, I mean, it's not even like I scheduled this. I wanted to ask you all these specific questions because I always hammer home the basics. I'm like, cool, we've got Dr. Mike on, we can get really nuanced about all this specific hypertrophy stuff, and then all we've ended up doing is talking about how hammering home the basics and staying consistent is the most important thing. You're not disappointing, dude. That's just the way it is, and that's what people need to hear.
100%, I agree.
Awesome. All right, so where can people find out more information and how to learn from you and your digital products that you've got?
Yeah, renaissanceperiodization.com, at RP Strength on Instagram. RP Dr. Mike is my Instagram, and Mike Israetel on Facebook, and iTunes and Google Play. We have the RP Diet app. If you search RP Diet, that comes up. And it automatically generates your own diet, and expert AI coaches you all the way through all the adjustments. All you do is pick your favorite foods, and it gets you as lean and muscular or whatever as your genetics allows. So it's like $15 a month for that entire service. It's all inclusive, and it's 2-week free trial. So give it a shot. I was one of I guess I was the inventor of the app, and so it was kind of sweet, and it's really working super well, and people like it. So give it a shot if you want your diet taken care of. That's
great, and all of you guys should absolutely give him a follow, because it's an interesting to see all the different nuances that he posts on Instagram and on Facebook. You publish like better articles than anyone's going to get in any sort of bodybuilding magazines, and they're just random status updates. So I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of it
for all of it, but
thanks. Well, a lot of times it's double timing. They're excerpts from books I'm writing, so it's I've already written them, and then there's sort of teasers, and they offer some wisdom.
Beautiful.
Wisdom's cutting myself a bit too much slack.
Awesome. Well, it's been awesome having you on, and I can't thank you enough, and I can't wait to get you back on if you'd like to come back, man.
Awesome, Tom. That sounds great. Let me know. Ping me, and I'll be back on. Thanks for your time.
All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this or any other episode of the Rugby Muscle podcast, please feel free to share it with your friends or teammates. It's something, the little things like that you can do that really do help the show grow, and the more we grow, the more we can help you guys out. Another thing that you can do is go ahead and give us a 5-star review on iTunes. That only takes about 20 seconds, and it helps us grow and helps us spread the podcast to people that need it. If you're interested in stepping up your training, then visit rugby-muscle.com, where you can pick up 50 free rugby conditioning sessions, or you can join Team Rugby Muscle, where you get world-class strength and conditioning delivered directly to your phone. That's rugby-muscle.com for more information on all of that. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.